Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Full Potential Show. I'm James Rick, and this is your number one non-boring source for personal development. And today on the line, we have Mada Dalian, affectionately known as Mada. She is a modern-day mystic, self-realized spiritual guide, multi-award-winning author of In Search of the Miraculous, Healing into Consciousness, and founder of the Lightspeed Dalian Method for Health and Consciousness. And today we're going to raise your consciousness about health, about fear, pain, for greater understanding of all these things in the higher mystical realms so that you can operate more effectively in this physical plane. Here today, so happy to have her on the show. Mada, welcome to the show.
Hello, James. Very happy to be on your show.
Well, very happy to have you, and I'd like to dive right in and talk about, first of all, what does it mean to be a modern-day mystic?
That's a really good question. As you know, mysticism is something that only few people in our history have been excited to explore. And the modern-day mystic is someone who does not disappear into Himalayas or disappear out of the world, but it's someone who is in the world, yet not of the world. And obviously, we need more of that kind of these kind of people because the world so much needs it now. We're so ready to transform from homo sapien to homo spiritus. From the age of knowledge to the age of spirituality, and therefore it's a great opportunity, and I'm very happy that I'm able to offer something in this time of transformation.
How do you know that you're of the world, or you're in the world, not of the world? I mean, have you had experiences? Can you share maybe one experience that you had that was really profound that helped you to realize that you are kind of playing in both games more fully?
Oh, absolutely. Many experiences, actually. And the most profound one, realizing, having the experience of what is the universe all about. In other words, realizing that I'm not my body, I'm not my emotions, I'm not my thoughts. And realizing that the whole universe is made of joy. And it's the source of creation. And we're all part of that. We're all born out of that creation. And the joy is the actual source within us. So it's actually seeing my whole body turn into light. Where there's no more the ego, there's no more the I.
And when you experience that, it's more like right now you're explaining it and we may get it logically, but when you're in it, it's like you're in the knowing, you're in that moment.
Exactly. And that moment comes when we actually face our fear, and more specifically the fear of death, and just stand there and say, if I'm going to die, that's a good day to die. No problem, I'm not going to escape.
Well, I mean, it sounds cool. Like, I'm not going to lie. If all I got to do is face my fear of death, I'm ready to do it. How does somebody who is more fully engaged in this world, where it's actually hurting their ability to have this spiritual progress or these spiritual experiences, what shifts would you like to see them make? I mean, we talk about moving into higher consciousness, but specifically, I mean, do you know what they need to do to accelerate their progress?
Well, first of all, James, we all need to start asking the question, who am I? And unless we start asking that question and be curious about knowing who we truly are, where do we come from, where do we go when we die, we can't really seriously do any spiritual work. For myself, my first experience of asking those questions was when I was 5 years old, and I saw my grandfather die. And what I realized is this is the most important thing for me to know in life. Nothing else really matters because everything comes and goes. I saw my grandfather being alive one moment and dead the next and gone. And nobody knows where he's gone. So the question was for me, it's the same thing is going to happen to me. So who am I? What am I doing here? Where do I come from? What is my purpose? And with that, it seemed like it's almost like that fire burns within you, that until I know these answers, everything else is fleeting. Everything is going to come and go. And life, what is the purpose of life is basically to help me know who I am and then find my gifts. Once I find my gifts, then I have something to offer.
And I want to map some of these things down. So help you know that I like what you said, that life is actually helping you to know who you are. And then within that knowing, find your gifts that you have to give in this world and then start sharing those. Is that?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's where you're going with that.
Because otherwise it's all intellectual. Looking for intellectually to learn a skill.
Right.
But that's not really what your true being is. Many times somebody is a great musician within themselves, but then the family circumstances make them go and become a doctor, and they really don't want to be a doctor. They want to be a musician because that's where their greatness is. So we're topsy-turvy in many ways.
And I what I hear you saying too is that it should be something that you know versus something that you think about, something that you think you should do versus what's in your heart. You should be doing what's in your heart. And you'll know what's in your heart is kind of your purpose because you've taken the time to discover who you are and what gifts you have to share. And that really is an exercise of discovery, isn't it? Like you said, you've got to have that burning desire in some way. And I think that burning desire comes through truly recognizing the temporariness of everything. Like really embracing that, because what's the number one reason why we don't think about it hard enough, or why we don't experience I guess the fear of death enough? Because death, as Buddha said, is the greatest teacher. And I know a lot of your work revolves around neutralizing that fear of death, because I know when I bring up death, people are like, oh, don't talk about that, it has become a very taboo. I don't know if it's become or always has been for a very long time a taboo subject, but death, if we stare it right in the face, is actually our own death is a source of our greatest teaching, is it not?
That's true, because what's dying or what's afraid to die is the ego. And because we don't understand that, this is where the difficulty arises. And that's why it took me 7 years to write my book, because people need a map. It's almost like so many people are lost. They don't understand. Many people are struggling with their ego. Many people know about the ego. Many people don't know about the ego. Those who know about the ego struggle with it. They think it's a horrible thing, this ego thing. But the ego is necessary. So we need to understand what is the role of the ego, how it develops, and how it's necessary in order for consciousness to develop. And there's steps.
And for those who might not be familiar with, within themselves, what you're talking about when you say the ego, can you, in your words, what it means to you to have an ego, and what the definition of an ego is?
Well, the ego is basically your identity in the material world. So you know yourself as a person. So it's James, and James has certain likes and dislikes, and certain appearance and certain programs. But there's somebody deeper than all those things. It's your being that once the body is gone, once all the programs are gone, there is the consciousness within you that's never going to die. So the ego, that part of us that is developed based on our thoughts, our emotions, based on our own beliefs, conditionings.
That's all ego.
Likes, dislikes, it's all ego.
Mm-hmm.
And we tend to think that this is us, or our profession, or or we many times think that if I get more money, if I get to become more successful, something inside me is going to be fulfilled. But it is a myth, because it's never going.
It's just adding layer upon layer of identity, but it's not actually getting you to the core of who you truly are. And real fulfillment is only when that spiritual core, that soul within the, that's living, that sometimes lives through the ego, when that becomes more fully realized, right? As a spiritual sort of involvement. And that has nothing to do with the material extensions of the ego, right?
Well, that's right, because through consciousness, what we're talking about here is consciousness. And consciousness is where everything that matters, everything that is true, everything that exists and is never going to be taken out of existence exists within consciousness. And scientists are now saying that consciousness is a fundamental core or fundamental tool in gene regulation and disease regulation. And that's why.
And this consciousness is like a field, right? Kind of operating through and in everything is what what actually they're trying to prove even in physics right now. Kind of that God particle is why they built these huge multi-billion-dollar colliders, because they're trying to discover this thing that unites all things. And this is what you're saying exists. It's within all of us, and it actually is an important part of in biological, like actually gene evolution, right? I mean, it's this field that exists around us and in us.
Consciousness influences everything. Consciousness influences energy. Consciousness influences anything material. So the matter, life, whatever life we're living is influenced by the level of consciousness we have inside.
And that's our level of fulfillment. So the further we get away from consciousness, the further we get away from that field that is the deepest core of who we are, the less fulfilled we are. That's right.
That's right.
So, I mean, so here's the secret to happiness then, right? I mean, now we can just say the secret to happiness is getting as close in alignment with the field as much as possible. Do you have some, would you agree with that definition, that happiness
Absolutely.
really is getting in touch with and aligning with the field?
Well, aligning with, again, who is saying aligning with the field, James? It's still the ego wants to align with something.
So we're already aligned. It's the shedding of the ego. Is that what it is?
That's right.
It's the shedding of the ego. Thank you. Okay, so because to say that we want to align with the field is saying that we are already separate from the field and that we're trying to get in alignment with it. And what you're saying is we're already in alignment with it. We just have to shed the ego to experience that alignment.
Exactly.
Okay,
exactly.
That's a very important thing that you just said there, because immediately coming from that place of ego, I'm like, okay, I gotta align with it, but I've gotta, and I've experienced this through peaks and valleys of consciousness, where when I really get in touch with this whole idea of life being temporary and my ego running its conditioning and routines and just kind of letting go, I've experienced that. So you're right on, and I think that some of us are in it, like yourself, as a mystic, you're in tune with it more often than not, whereas I feel like maybe just by the nature of work and stuff that I do, that sometimes I put on the suit, I put the suit of ego and the armor or whatever, and then I go out there and that's the projection to the world, whereas I do wish that I was more in a place of non-ego. But let me ask you, because what I've discovered is at first I was trying to just like kill the ego, like you said, it's like this mean thing, it's temporary, and it's holding us back from being in alignment with consciousness. But then, and this goes along with your point earlier, that it actually can serve us, and if we find its role and everything in getting more conscious, how do you stay conscious more often than not? Because I think that's the biggest challenge. I think everybody who's searching will eventually discover that yes, they're not their routines, they're not their conditioning, their programs, even their physical body. But then it's like, okay, now what? How do I stay in touch with that wisdom and operate in a world full of egos in the most conscious way possible?
Well, the way to do that is without denying anything. In other words, in full acceptance. Consciousness cannot deny anything. Consciousness is simply is. And what is consciousness? It's your ability to witness. So if you're in the witness without accepting or denying anything, in other words, you're simply an observer, then there is no conflict. Then there is no separation, that there is no difference between you and me.
And I get that, and then immediately, maybe it's my ego. It's probably my ego. He's got a big mouth, that ego.
But the mind, right? Yeah.
The mind. says that if I do that, then suddenly this goal achieving, this progress, suddenly I just kind of sit back. Like, that's the thing that I resist the most, is this idea that if I let go and if I accept and if I stop rejecting the reality that I'm in right now, that I'm going to get comfortable with it and I'm not going to try to make advancements. I'm not going to try to improve it. I'm not going to be hungry to make progress. What do you have to say about that?
Well, you see, the part of you that wants to make progress is still the part of your ego, because once you find your true calling, whatever you're going to be doing is going to be effortless. There's going to be no effort whatsoever, because it comes from that part of you that knows, this is my calling, I'm doing it, and I can stay awake for 24 hours a day. And
because even though I'm working that much, it's not actually work. It's like being 24 hours a day. You don't have to do anything more to be, and that becomes the state of being that you choose.
Exactly. And also, you know that you're not separate from the whole. You know that whatever is being done through you is not you who's doing it. In other words, you are the vehicle based on your gifts, because everybody has their gifts. We all have our own journeys that we've traveled many lifetimes, and we've learned many things, and therefore we're sharing our gifts. But then coming to the place of realization, I'm simply a vehicle, then there's no ego. The ego is not bothered anymore to claim, I want to achieve fame, I want to achieve success, I want to, be the most important person in the world. There's no me anymore, but I'm really enjoying living my life fully, because this is all this planetary life is all about, just to live and enjoy it fully and live your potential fully. Because you know what happens, James, once you live it fully on this plane, the earth is not the only place that exists within the universe. We travel eternally everywhere. We come from other planets. We can go to other planets. It's the moment-to-moment journey. Like you asked me, what was the most significant thing in my experience? When I had that experience, what I realized is the journey is the goal. There's nowhere to go.
There it is. I like that one. The journey is the goal. Ooh, my ego's gonna have to settle on that one for a little while. All right, so I'm real big into the practice. Am I overthinking this stuff? I mean, how can the majority, because really this stuff has to be practiced or applied or something, because it's like you can hear this, but then everybody that's watching right now is going to go on and probably most likely, unless they're already in a state of higher consciousness, because it's so difficult, start running those routines again, start believing they are the identity, and keep on down the road, and maybe have altered their path a little bit from this discussion that we're having. But how do we make profound impact? How do we leave them in a state of this effortless grace that you're talking about, where they start or have fully shed the ego that is disruptive and distracting from the core of making this journey the goal? And really, I mean, you seem like such a wonderful, happy, I mean, it's very clear that you're in that place all the time. This is where we all should be all the time. It's just we live in a world full of energy distractions and distortion. How do we make this a better world, and how do we start with the people that have tuned in today and want to make their lives a state of bliss? I mean, who wouldn't? How do we make that happen as maybe some steps, or take it from there.
Well, first of all, I love you for saying we need something practical. It's absolutely true, because intellectually you can learn, you can go so far, and that stays there. We need the body awareness. We need the body experience. And practically, I'm as a matter of fact, my whole work is practical. I don't like doing intellectual talks too much, but the practical tools are there from centuries. Buddha gave the tool, one very important tool, Vipassana meditation, witnessing your breath.
What is that called?
Vipassana meditation, simply watching your breath.
And spell that, please, so everybody can search that, including myself. I pronounce it Vipassana. It's
Vipassana. Yeah.
Vipassana.
VIP. SS.
ANA.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the meditation that was practiced for centuries. Very recently, in our day, in our modern day society, Osho, another great Buddha of the 21st century,
Love Osho.
yes, developed the active meditations.
And this is one of the meditations that you do on CD, right? It's the yes/no meditation.
That one is actually that was inspired by Osho's vision, which I created that meditation as a meditation. It was one of his suggestions to somebody that in his darshan diaries, and I thought this is a wonderful idea. So I just made a meditation out of it, and people just love it. It's very powerful. You say no for half an hour. Then you sit silent, you release a little layers. So you talk about, all those layers that we accumulate, repressed thoughts, repressed emotions, beliefs, conditionings, and sometimes they go into the past lives. And so this helps all those repressions to be released. And just imagine how many times we say yes when we mean no.
What is the Dalian method? And just briefly describe that, and then I want to direct everybody to your website to get these. These are the active, practical things that you can do. These meditations. You've created what's called the Dalian method. I want to hear about that. But this is where we get practical, right? These are the things.
Absolutely.
These are the tools that you've created to help people access these states of consciousness.
That's right. With the Dalian method, I've been working with it since 97, one-on-one, and recently, since the past 2 years, I've been experimenting with the way to create a self-healing version of this method, because it's been 100% transformative with everyone I've worked with. And I've managed to do that and experimented with it, and recently we did a research with it as well. And I believe Jessica must have sent you some images of that as well. But what it does, it helps the person to go inside their body, identify the repressed thoughts and emotions. And with the system of breathing, there's inhalation, expression, and exhalation, which goes through a system, through the whole body, allows those repressions to be released. So what happens? Once the beliefs are released, consciousness is already within you. Suddenly, the sun starts shining.
The water's already trying to flow through the hose. It's just kinked. You got to unkink it.
That's it. So then you don't have to work hard, and it's really fun way to quickly release those repressions, and suddenly the aha moment comes right away. You don't have to work at it hard. And the moment you see it, the method is such that it transforms your entire energy, just like a switch, just as simple as that. You switch and the whole energy shifts with no effort and with a lot of fun.
I like it. All right, where do we get a copy of the Dalian method?
Well, that one will be, I'm working on the book. It's going to come as a book, DVD, and a CD set. And it should come out probably, hopefully, by sometime in the summertime.
All right, so where can we go to, I know you've got a newsletter and everything. You'll at least keep us fed for now, and then where can we, and then we'll get an update when this is available. So where can they go to get on your newsletter?
MadaDalian.com or healingintoconsciousness.com. They both can sign up through those websites.
Okay, Mada Dalian, that's MadaDalian.com. And you're also on Facebook, facebook.com/Mada Dalian. And you were going to say one more thing.
Yes, you were talking about the newsletter. So with the newsletter sign up, people can also get a free power shake, which is a replacement for breakfast with the toast.
I could go for that right now. I am hungry. All right, so Mada, you really are a saint, a mystic, what you will. You are in touch with that consciousness, and your work is to help us get in touch with our consciousness, and I think everybody could feel that today. I want to thank you for sharing your gifts with us. And I truly do encourage everybody to check out these practical tools that you talk about, because yes, we can have an intellectual conversation, but the fastest channel to this is really on an emotional level of knowing, isn't it? Like just Absolutely. Feeling it and knowing it. When you it's undeniable at that point, but otherwise You can massage it around in your consciousness and your intelligence and say, does that make sense? Do I believe that? But when you feel it, when you know it, when you're there, and I think I've been, I mean, I definitely know there's been periods when I'm there, totally there, and I'm like, I'm never gonna leave. This is great. And then the ego gets in there again, and then I'm like, whoa, too much ego. So I'm letting folks know that it is a challenge. Even if you get there, it's a challenge, and I think it's probably the biggest challenge in our life. One of the biggest challenges in our life, to get outside of our own identity and to stay outside of our own identity as an observer, as a fulfilled spiritual observer, as opposed to a confused, lost within the labyrinth of the complexity of ego. And it's a lifelong process, but by, I think, maintaining these practices, you can stay there longer, because you do this stuff all the time, don't you?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think that's really the key. So I'm going to check this stuff out. I encourage everybody to do the same. Mada, thank you for raising everybody's consciousness, including my own, today on the Full Potential Show.
Thank you, James. Thank you. It's a pleasure being here with you.
It was a pleasure. Thank you. Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye. Well, that concludes this week's episode of the Full Potential Show, your number one non-boring source for personal development. I'm James Rick, and if you want to get more positive programming for your brain absolutely free on a weekly basis, just visit fullpotential.com.
If you like the Full Potential Show, you're going to love the Full Potential Club. What would you like most as a Full Potential Club member? Be 2 to 3 times more productive? Do what you're passionate about? Have more energy? Reduce your work hours? Travel the world? Enjoy an amazing lifestyle on a frugal budget? What if you could do them all? James Rick has been there and done it in ways that few people have. For anyone serious about taking their life or business to the next level, you know you've got to do more than just watch. You've got to do. Join James Rick and other like-minded people for an incredible $10 a month at fullpotential.com/club. Be educated. Be empowered. Be the best version of you. fullpotential.com/club. Try it free for 30 days.